Ever look at the financial system and just get this feeling that that it's rigged, that it's way more complicated than it needs to be, almost like it's designed for somebody else to win? Well, today we're going to put that feeling under a microscope. We're going to explore a really powerful way to understand how wealth actually moves when markets go crazy. All right, let's get into it. And this quote, it really just cuts right to the chase. It's telling us that the systems we all live in, mortgages, taxes, even our jobs, they're not just some random mess of rules. They are engineered. They are structures built with specific outcomes in mind. And look, this isn't about some backroom conspiracy theory. It's about understanding structural design. So let's start with the big idea for today. The world is a giant scheme. Now, when we say scheme or plan in the original text, don't just think of a scam. A better way to think about it is like a huge, complicated game board. It's a lens, a way to see the world not as total chaos, but as a series of structured games where money is just the playing piece. Okay, so if the world is a game board, then what are the rules? How does this whole scheme actually work? Well, it turns out there's a pattern, and it's surprisingly consistent once you see it. The tool we're going to use to understand this is something called Ponziology. And I know, that word has a lot of baggage, but stick with me here. It's just a charm for studying the structure of these financial game boards. It's what lets us see that the basic architecture behind, say, a government-backed mortgage is weirdly similar to a brand new crypto project. And this right here, this is the core engine of how it all works. Every single one of these schemes has three parts. First, you cut the head. Think of this as the price of admission, the down payment on your house, the broker fees to buy a stock, basically any upfront cost. Second, you stream the middle. This is how value gets siphoned off while you're in the game, through little ongoing fees, taxes, service charges. And finally, number three, remove the tail. This is the exit, and it's almost always designed to be complicated, making it really hard for most people to get out at the best time. This is how the system makes sure that when things go bad, the losses get spread out and absorbed by the majority. The amazing thing is, once you see this three-part structure, you cannot unsee it. You start seeing it everywhere. The whole American dream of owning a home, it's a massive state-sponsored scheme. You've got the entry costs, the ongoing mortgage and tax payments, and a really complex exit. And you know what? It's the same pattern for so many new tokens and financial products. The underlying structure is identical. It's just the sales pitch that changes. So let's move away from the theory for a second and look at a real-world case study. Because it's during the absolute chaos of a market bubble and crash that this wealth transfer machine really kicks into high gear. We're going to dive into a pretty dramatic example, the Chinese stock market roller coaster from 2014 to 2015. I mean, the market more than doubled and then, bam, crashed by over 40% in just a few months. It's the perfect laboratory to see our theory in action. Now just look at this number for a second. 250 billion RMB. That's about 35 billion US dollars. That is the sheer amount of wealth that was transferred from one group of investors to another during that incredibly short and chaotic time. The big question is, who got it and who lost it? And this chart, wow, it shows you exactly what happened. And it is brutally clear. The red line, that's the wealthiest 0.5% of investors. As you can see, they did pretty well for themselves. And the blue line? Yeah, that's the bottom 85% of investors. They took an absolute beating. Right there, in those two lines, you are seeing a massive wealth transfer in plain sight. So, and this is the key point, this was not just random luck. The data showed that when the market was calm, there was almost no difference in performance. But when the chaos of the bubble hit, when the trading volume went through the roof, the very design of the system magnified every advantage the biggest players had. It led to a huge structural transfer of wealth from the many to the very, very few. Okay, now let's do something interesting. Let's take this same framework and use it to look into the future. What if the next huge scheme, the next massive wealth transfer, is already being built all around us and it's being driven by AI? This is the central question of a pretty terrifying scenario for a potential crisis around 2028. It's asking us to think about a totally new kind of risk. Not a risk based on bad debt, like we're used to, but a risk based on disappearing paychecks. Let me put it this way. The 2008 crisis was pretty simple at its core, right? It was a credit quality problem. Banks just gave out bad loans to people who couldn't possibly pay them back. But this 2028 scenario, it's different. It imagines a crisis where the loans were good when they were made, given to people with great credit and stable, high-paying jobs. The problem is that the world changes and AI eliminates those jobs. Suddenly, good loans go bad. It's an income stability problem. The engine driving all of this is something called the intelligence premium unwind. Think about it. For basically all of modern history, human brainpower was a scarce and valuable thing. Our entire financial system, from what we get paid to what kind of mortgage we can get, is built on that basic fact. But now AI is becoming a real substitute for that brainpower, and the whole system is being forced to recalculate the value of human intelligence. And that repricing could be, well, incredibly chaotic. And this could kick off a really nasty downward spiral. Let's just walk through it. Step 1. Companies, being rational, start adopting AI to cut costs. Makes sense. But then step 2, those high-earning white-collar workers, the people who buy all the stuff, they lose their jobs. They stop spending. Step 3, because they stop spending, corporate profits start to get squeezed. So what do the companies do? Step 4, they panic and double down on the one thing that seems to work, investing even more heavily in AI to cut even more costs. And the cycle just starts all over again, only faster. The really weird result of this is something called ghost GDP. It means that on paper, the economy looks amazing. Productivity numbers are soaring because all this work is being done by machines. But the money from that productivity isn't going to households anymore. It's going to the companies that make the AI chips and the utility companies that power them. So the national accounts look great, but the real economy, the one where people actually buy things, just grinds to a halt. So this all brings us to the big question, the end game. Why do these massive wealth transferring schemes even exist? What's their real purpose in the whole economic system? The answer, believe it or not, comes down to this one simple but really profound idea. Money that's just sitting in a bank account doing nothing is basically dead money. For an economy to work, for it to live and breathe, capital has to circulate, it has to move. And maybe the single biggest problem in all of modern finance is that huge piles of wealth get stuck at the very top and just stop moving. And this, right here, is the final piece of the puzzle. All of these schemes, the bubbles, the hot new trends, from the housing boom to the latest crypto craze, they are basically giant engines designed to solve that one problem. They're built to lure that stagnant, dead money back into the game, to create liquidity, to get the capital flowing again. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. From the perspective of the system itself, bubbles and crashes are not bugs, they are features. They are a brutal, chaotic, but weirdly effective way to reshuffle the deck and reallocate capital. Their function is to force those giant pools of dead money back into circulation. In a way, they're the system's own violent reset button. I know this can all sound incredibly cynical, maybe even a little hopeless. But the point of this whole analysis isn't to tell you how to get rich or how to time the next crash. It's to suggest a different way of thinking about it all. Maybe the goal isn't really to try and win a game that might be tilted from the start. Maybe the real goal is just to finally understand the rules. Because once you understand that three-step structure, the entry cost, the slow drain in the middle, and the complicated exit, you can look at any new investment, any market story, and you can start to see how it really works underneath. So I'll just leave you with this question. If the world really is just one giant game board, have you taken the time to actually learn the rules?